morning air bites with the kind of cold that steals your breath before you can see it. Outside the VA hospital, a man sits quietly beside his worn backpack, the leash of a loyal dog looped around his wrist. He doesn't ask for help. He doesn't even look up anymore. Cars pass. Eyes avert. But when the sleek black sedan pulls to the curb and a decorated officer steps out, the world slows. The officer's eyes catch a faint glint of metal beneath the man's coat. Dog tags. The kind you don't forget. He takes one step closer, then drops to his knees, trembling like he's seen a ghost. Silence holds the moment hostage. The colonel can barely breathe as the weight of memory presses down. The man before him, a face once vibrant under the desert sun, now looks carved by time and pain. For years, the colonel had believed him gone. A casualty of chaos, a ghost on the roster. Yet here he is, breathing, shivering, alive. He whispers something, maybe a name, maybe a prayer. The veteran's eyes lift slowly, confusion battling recognition. Time folds in on itself. 1,000 dusty miles of memory rush back in an instant. Neither speaks, but the silence screams with everything left unsaid. The colonel removes his gloves and clutches the dogged tags, his hand trembling as though holding a fragment of his own soul. The veteran watches silently, unsure whether to reach out or retreat. The world feels impossibly distant, the sounds of the city muffled under the weight of memory. The colonel finally speaks, voice breaking as he mutters words no soldier should ever have to say. The veteran doesn't respond. His dog presses closer, the only warmth he's known in years. For the first time in a long while, both men realize they've been carrying the same ghost all along. Memory hits like gunfire. The cold pavement of the via fades into the searing heat of a desert long gone. The colonel blinks, but he's no longer standing in winter. He's back in the dust and chaos of a foreign war. Orders echo. Explosions roll, and the faces of men blur together, until one remains the medic who never gave up, even when the world burned around him. The medic's voice had once been steady, calm, even under fire. The colonel remembers shouting commands, hearing that voice answer through radio static, a lifeline of courage when everything else fell apart. The sound echoes now, like a ghost in his ears. He had ordered them to hold position, believing reinforcements were minutes away. But minutes turned into eternity. The medic went back for one more man, one too many. The colonel's last sight of him was through the haze, running toward gunfire, fearless and doomed. When the dust cleared, they couldn't find him. The colonel had written his name on the report, missing, presumed dead. It was supposed to be a formality, but it never left him. Every medal since felt heavier, every ceremony emptier. He carried the ghost like a second skin. Back in the present, the colonel stares into the veteran's eyes, realizing that the ghost he buried wasn't gone. He was sitting in front of him all along. The sound of war still echoes, but this time is not in memory. It's in forgiveness, waiting to be spoken. The colonel returns the next day, unable to stay away. He brings coffee and silence. Two things that speak louder than apologies. The veteran doesn't say much. His eyes hold the same storm the colonel once commanded. Between them lies 1,000 unsent words. A brotherhood buried under rank and regret. The colonel tries to speak of the past, but guilt turns his words to gravel. He remembers the day he left his medic behind, the orders he gave that cost more than he could admit. The veteran just listens, the way he used to on patrol, patient, steady, without judgment. In the pause between breaths, the colonel's mask finally cracks. He admits what he's carried for decades, that he left a man behind. The veteran looks at him, not with anger, but with a kind of tired mercy that breaks the colonel completely. They share memories between sips of bitter coffee, stories of men who never came home, jokes that once drowned out fear, and the promise that every soldier made no one gets left behind. But promises are fragile things. The colonel knows he broke his. The veteran never says it, but his eyes forgive him anyway. As the sun sets behind the VA, the colonel stands to leave, his heart heavier yet somehow freer. The veteran nods, a silent salute between brothers who've survived the same ghosts. For the first time in years, the colonel doesn't walk away alone. Guilt may remain, but it's no longer his only companion. Days blend into one another, but the colonel keeps returning. Each time, the veteran is there. Same spot, same quiet. The only constant motion is the dog, sitting guard like a sentinel between two worlds. The colonel begins to realize that the animal's loyalty isn't just survival. It's devotion, the kind he used to see in his men. The colonel brings a blanket, unsure why. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's gratitude. The veteran nods in quiet thanks. But the dog is the one who moves closer first, sniffing, judging, then resting its head against the colonel's knee. It's the smallest gesture, but it breaks him more than any salute ever could. The colonel asks about the dog's name, Ranger. The veteran answers after a pause, voice gravelly but steady. The word hits like an echo from another lifetime. Ranger, the call sign of the unit. They both once served. The colonel swallows hard. This isn't coincidence. It's remembrance. The colonel laughs for the first time. Not joy, but something close to relief. The veteran smiles faintly, a crack in the armor. For a moment, the air feels lighter. Two soldiers, one human and one canine, had kept a promise that the world forgot. Loyalty hadn't died after all. It had simply changed form. That night, as the colonel drives home, he can't shake the image. That dog guarding his soldier as fiercely as any man once did for his brother. He realizes he's been given a second chance, not just to make peace with the past, but to honor the loyalty that outlived a war. The next morning, the colonel arrives early. The veteran is already awake, feeding bits of sandwich to his dog. They exchange few words, but something about the way the veteran clutches a weathered envelope catches the colonel's eye. Its edges are torn, its paper yellowed by time. The veteran hesitates, then offers it, not as a gift, but as proof of everything forgotten. The letter is official, stamped and signed, a commendation for valor. The words are formal, hollow now, but the date burns like fire, the day after he was declared missing. The colonel realizes what it means. The system honored him after losing him. Paper recognition for a man left behind. The colonel's voice shakes as he reads aloud. He remembers signing the same commendation himself, never knowing it would vanish into bureaucracy. His throat tightens. This piece of paper was meant to heal, but instead it buried a man alive. The veteran just listens, eyes closed, as if hearing the ghost of his own name read from the grave. When he finishes, silence fills the space. The colonel folds the letter with care, as though handling a fallen flag. The veteran nods once, slow, forgiving, final. Between them, the weight of decades lifts just enough for both men to breathe again. As the colonel rises, he realizes this moment is more than closure. It's atonement. The letter that never came finally found its way home. The veteran looks up, and for the first time, his smile isn't guarded. The past cannot be rewritten, but the bond between soldiers never truly fades. The sky is gray when the colonel returns. The wind hums through the empty benches outside the VA, carrying whispers of old battles and lost time. He finds the veteran sitting with Ranger, the dog's head resting against his leg, eyes fixed on the building he has never entered. For a long while, neither man speaks. The colonel knows this silence. It's the sound of courage being gathered. When he finally extends his hand, it's not an order, but an invitation. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the veteran nods. The moment feels fragile, sacred, like the first light after a long storm. They walk together toward the doors, one hesitant, one steady. Each step feels heavier than the last. The veteran's reflection trembles in the glass, torn between the man he was and the one he could still become. The colonel walks just behind him, his voice low but firm, reminding him that this building isn't a monument to the broken. It's a bridge back to life. When the veteran's boots cross the threshold, it's as though the world exhales in relief. Inside, the air smells faintly of antiseptic and polished floors. The veteran's steps echo in the hall like distant gunfire, each sound awakening ghosts he thought he'd buried. His pulse races, but then her voice breaks through. The nurse greets him with a warmth so gentle it disarms him completely. She calls him by name, the same one he hasn't heard spoken kindly in years. For the first time since the war, his shoulders ease. The colonel watches from behind, realizing that healing sometimes begins with nothing more than being seen. The nurse leads them down a long hallway. Every door they pass holds stories, men and women rebuilding, one piece at a time. The veteran's gaze flickers across portraits of soldiers lining the walls, each frame marked by a name, a date, a smile that never fades. His breath steadies. The colonel trails behind, watching pride replace hesitation with every step. When they reach the end of the hall, the veteran stops before a photo of his old unit. He touches the frame, and the years between then and now dissolve in a single tear. The nurse opens a door to a small therapy room. Inside, the light is soft, warm, a world away from the harsh sun of memory. The veteran kneels beside Ranger, hands buried in the dog's fur, forehead pressed close. He whispers something no one else can hear. A vow between brothers who've seen too much and survived anyway. The colonel stands in the doorway, overcome by quiet awe. For the first time, he sees not the soldier who vanished, but the man who found his way back. Healing doesn't roar, it whispers. And in that stillness, both men finally understand that surviving was never the end. It was the beginning. The winter has started to break. The VA courtyard, once a blur of gray and motion, now breathes with warmth and color. Where the veteran once sat alone in silence, there's only an empty stretch of concrete and faint marks from his boots. Inside, the man once forgotten is healing. The colonel stands by the door most mornings, coffee in hand, a silent guard for someone he used to command. When their eyes meet, there's no rank, no pity. Just recognition between two survivors, learning how to live again. When the nurse arrives, the veteran is already sitting at the edge of his bed, shoes tied, hands steady. She smiles as she hands the colonel a clipboard, discharge papers, the quiet reward of survival. The colonel watches the veteran sign his name with deliberate care. That name once echoed through radio static and casualty reports. Now, it lives again, in ink. The sound of the pen scratching across paper feels louder than applause. It's the sound of a man reclaiming himself. Outside, spring wind carries the scent of wet pavement and blooming grass. The veteran pauses on the hospital steps, breathing it in like oxygen after years underwater. The colonel stands beside him, not leading, not following, just there. Ranger trots ahead, tail high, nose to the wind. Cars pass, people move, but for these two men, the world narrows to this small miracle, walking out together. Walking out together. Every step forward feels like one more toward redemption. They stop near the flagpole. The veteran's gaze lifts, tracing the stars and stripes rippling in the wind. He reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out the same dog tags that once bound them to the past. Without a word, he presses them into the colonel's palm. The gesture says everything. The colonel hesitates, emotions swelling until his knees give way. He kneels, not as an officer, not out of ceremony, but from something deeper. It's gratitude, apology, and reverence all at once. The world falls quiet. The camera pulls back. Two silhouettes cast long across the pavement, united beneath the same flag. The veteran reaches down and helps the colonel to his feet. No words pass between them. None are needed. In their eyes, there's the silent understanding of men who have both lived through hell and found light on the other side. The war is over, not the one fought overseas, but the one inside. And as Ranger barks softly and the flag waves above, it feels like the nation itself exhales. 2 soldiers standing tall, bound forever by loyalty, forgiveness, and the unspoken brotherhood of survival.